SETI should look for ET consciousness, not ET intelligence. Jacques Vallee publishes article September 16, 2019. Greg, editor of the Daily Grail, brought to light an important article recently published on the website of renowned ufologist/scientist and scientist Jacques Vallee, suggesting that SETI shift its strategy to looking for extraterrestrial intelligence. SETI should look for ET consciousness, not ET intelligence. Jacques Vallee publishes article late last year. Legendary UFO scientist/UFO researcher Jacques Vallee sent an extraordinary article to his site with little fanfare. What makes me describe it this way? The incredible fusion of the co-author's knowledge base and the topics he discusses regarding future SETI strategies. First, the three authors of the article. Jacques Vallee himself, a polymath known primarily for his status in the field of ufology but who also holds higher degrees in astrophysics and computer science, is an award-winning novelist, a venture capitalist, and has contributed to the foundations of the Internet through his I Work for ARPANET. Federico Fagan, physicist, engineer, entrepreneur and inventor, perhaps best known for designing the first commercial microprocessor, the Intel 4004. Gary Nolan, a renowned professor of microbiology and immunology at Stanford University, head of the Nolan Lab. Nolan appeared on the news last year for his investigation of Atacama's alien mummy, and it is also rumored to be the pseudonym for James and Diana Walsh Pasolka's American Cosmic. As for the topics, although the title of the article awards multidisciplinary SETI research, may sound like a generic call for astronomers to work with academics from other fields, the authors are actually suggesting that SETI consider ideas from fields such as parapsychology, consciousness research, anomalies, and ufology/ovnology. As you can imagine, this is probably not what most people in SETI, known to align with skeptical organizations, would like to see. But apparently at least some within SETI do it. On Twitter, Gary Nolan explained that the article was originally written at the request of someone from SETI, but when it became obvious that it would be lost among conventional proposals, the trio brought your involvement to an end. Gary P. Nolan at Gary Nolan, May 1, 2019, replying to @PAULXXXXX@J09784691. We were asked by someone at SETI/NASA to expose our thoughts. We knew our ideas were not unique, straight from the sci-fi stories of my youth. The other proposals were conventional. The administrative waste started and we decided it was not worth discussing and we reduced the involvement. Gary P. Nolan at Gary Nolan, there was someone on SETI who wasn't that SSH guy who wanted our ideas on the table. But the table was full of mediocrity, so we decided we had better things to do than try to convince the monkeys to get out of the trees and out of the caves. Fortunately, even though they left the project, Vallee posted the document on their website so we could all read. So what does the document have to say? It begins by recapping the origins of SETI in the Drake equation and the organization's failure to find any evidence of extraterrestrial intelligence in subsequent decades. In this paper, we draw lessons from not detecting such recognizable electromagnetic signals despite more than half a century of continuous effort. We propose to broaden the scope of the parameters of the Drake equation by taking advantage of newly discovered facts about life forms, consciousness and possible modes of communication that SETI founders did not have in the first decades. We also support the concept of an expanded EM electromagnetic signal search in less noisy environments. The article looks at three areas in which the core concepts of SETI could be reevaluated or reconsidered. 1. A revised Drake equation and extraterrestrial intelligence expectations. Vallee, Fagan, and Nolan raised 2 points regarding the revision of Drake's equation. The first, instead of looking for living conditions as we know it, ND for intelligence directly derived from such a life, would not put the problem into form of a quest for consciousness. If we assume that consciousness cannot always be linked to a body in the material and biological sense as we currently understand it, how can the parameters in Drake's equation be revised? Second, the trio notes that very advance in humanity's far-reaching communication systems has had a short half-life. Fire signals, telegraph, telephone, radio waves, fiber optics, and terahertz waves, to name a few. And while electromagnetic waves may be the main means of human communication today, they are slow at interplanetary distances and perhaps debatable on a cosmic scale, in which a civilization can transcend understanding or fade in the time between hello and yes, who's calling. As such, the authors ask, Should SETI consider how advanced alien civilizations may have transcended EM waves as a mode of communication? Radio signals on today's computer or fiber optic networks would not be detectable with the best electronic equipment of the 1960s. So what does this say about a truly advanced civilization that may be tens of thousands or millions of years older than ours? Are there new forms of signal that we can monitor by studying other physical properties for which the universe is currently known to operate? Is electromagnetism the only form of communication? Do we consider quantum signaling approaches among our signaling modalities? 2. Modern biology and advanced AI suggest necessary extensions of the model. The first point raised by Vallee, Fagan, and Nolan is hardly a new criticism of SETI and how it should perhaps broaden its horizon when it comes to advanced methods of communication. But their second point begins to enter much more heretical areas. It begins in reasonably orthodox territory, noting that to the time the SETI model was started, the common scientific definition of life was restricted. Some life forms on Earth had not yet been discovered, such as archaea, extremophiles known to survive in harsh conditions near underwater volcanoes or algae that thrive on ice. These examples, they note, suggest the creatures could evolve under conditions very different from those predicted by the Drake equation. But then by adding ideas related to the progress of AI and post-biological evolution, they suggest that the model may even include civilizations that have transferred their consciousness and their ability to communicate with physical substrates such as plasmas or systems of evolution. Solid state capable of operating at temperatures, pressures and other environmental conditions well above and below the allowable ranges for carbon-based life. As such, they say, SETI should not focus solely on stars with livable systems, as everywhere could be habitable for advanced life forms. That way they may have migrated away from their birth star and a classic search would fail to find them. We focus on the stars, but are the vast reaches of intergalactic space or volumes between superclusters being ignored? And then, the trio heads for territory that probably left some faces pale in SETI. At this time, new models for the evolution of consciousness and matter are under study that suggest new possibilities for interpreting the nature of reality and that are at odds with a materialistic worldview. This includes the possibility of other forms of communication or contact with alien intelligences that are considered science fiction by conventional science but have an extraordinary history of anecdotal evidence. We are talking about everything from telepathy, empathy, remote viewing and out-of-body experiences that may be pointing to channels of communication beyond what electromagnetic waves can reveal. The brain proteins that make up our neurons are in a quantum mix where information is transferred in still unfathomable ways. Are these proteins and biological products completely blind to all forms of information that pass through them? Like I said, it's an extraordinary article. 3. Anomalous signals offer an opportunity to test new hypotheses. The third point raised by the trio again would make people like Seth Shostak start to sweat cold as they read the proposal, as it enters forbidden territory for SETI, the wild lands of ethology/ovnology. The article notes that an experienced civilization in interspecies communication would have to adapt communication to each new species that it hopes to come into contact with, or may have a common mode for this interaction, and asks the question, oh, what really constitutes a signal? A possible answer: UFOs. Over the past 60 years, progress has been made in the study of anomalous objects reported in the atmosphere and beyond by competent civilian and military observers in all countries. Although the subject was controversial, several serious groups were formed to track and analyze public observations and special aviation report archives. These observations may not be directly relevant to the detection of non-human intelligence, but they provide a test bed ready for methodology improvement and its extension to forms of consciousness that may have already traveled to our solar system. Many intriguing but reliable 18th and 19th century astronomical observations tend to confirm this possibility. If we remove a potentially strong signal from the consideration table, something that is somehow directly signaling to our consciousness today, will we be blinding the wow signal we're looking for? Do we define a solution so strictly that when it knocks on our door, we refuse to see it as it is? Or, to make it clear, the appearance of a clearly non-terrestrial anomaly in the sky a sign? The article goes on to explain. In-stream physicists currently reasonably discuss quantum realities, multiverse concepts, space warp motors, the universe as a simulation, but Drake's equation and SETI takes these considerations off the table. If there is more than one universe, each with different timelines and potentially different rules of physics. Can they signal us at the subconscious level, although we have not yet learned to understand what we are getting? And for the brave SETI scientists who came to the end of the article, the authors conclude by explaining why they feel it is important to think outside the box when it comes to future SETI directions. The trio says, not so long ago, airplanes, trips to the moon, and even nuclear power were considered ridiculous. Do reasonable scientists draw evidence from the table if it cannot be explained or when it does not fit a preconceived model? As such, they beg the open-minded SETI researcher, who is worth considering, the ideas that most immediately dismiss. It's good to have models and Occam's razor, but these are not universal truths, and history proves that discovery happens when anomalies are not ignored.